You're doing it for me. Somebody wrote that I'm a shusher. Was that you, Manu?
I can't take credit.
Who wrote I'm a shusher? Someone did. I read it.
Zach.
Who did?
I said Zach.
How do you spell it?
Shusher. Who wrote that I'm a shusher?
I want to know how they spelled it.
I don't know. Thank you. All right. Hi, everybody. Shh. I want to thank Senators Murray, Reid, and Coons for joining us here. And we have a lot to get done before the end of this year, including a bipartisan national security package. In our supplemental, there are a number of things we have to do at once. Deliver aid to Israel, aid to Ukraine, humanitarian assistance to help innocent victims in Gaza, and military capabilities in the Indo-Pacific. All these national security issues are related and should move together. We are under a threat from authoritarians around the world, whether they be in Russia or China or Iran, and Iran sponsored things like Hamas and Hezbollah. As the Republican leader has noted, America doesn't have the luxury, I agree with the leader on that for sure. America doesn't have the luxury to pick and choose national security threats that befall us. We must address all of them, because our adversaries, Russia, China, the CPP, Russia, Iran, the CPP, are investing heavily in them too. But for weeks, long weeks, a handful of Republicans have dangerously tried to link Ukraine aid and make our support for democracy in the West a pivotal issue that history will remember us for, conditional on passing hard right border policies similar to H.R. 2. Instead, Democrats are working to have a good faith conversation with Republicans on what both sides can agree on the border. But you can know one thing for sure, that it's the Republicans holding this up by their insistence on an extraneous and partisan issue where there's always difficulty in coming to agreement on. I implore my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to stand firmly on the side of history. You're going to give me the opportunity. It's not working. I implore my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to stand firmly on the right side of history, to work in good faith to pass aid for the Ukrainian people as part of our supplemental. Now, also this week, we're going to continue our AI Insight forums. Tomorrow, we're going to host our 7th forum, focused on 2 major areas of AI, transparency and intellectual property. Our debate on transparency and explainability will be one of the most important discussions we have to truly fully harness AI's true potential and make this technology understandable to users. For copyright, we'll discuss how creators and inventors can maintain their identities in the age of AI, including how we can protect copyrighted content being used to train AI systems. Now, earlier this morning, a number of senators held a screening of the chilling footage of Hamas's October 7th attack. It was jarring and harrowing. It shook all of us up in the room. I had to go sit in my office for a half hour alone after seeing it. Since that horrific day, anti-Semitic attacks have drastically increased around the world. In the U.S., anti-Semitic attacks have spiked nearly 400%. Since that devastating day last month, Jewish students on college campuses have been harassed and assaulted. Jewish-owned businesses boycotted and vandalized. A Jewish high school teacher in New York City was forced to hide in a locked office because students demanded her firing simply because they saw her online posting a Stand for Israel poster at a rally. Jews around the world look at instances like these and fear a slippery slope. Too often in our history, legitimate criticism against Israeli policies or other policies has crossed over into something darker, into attacking Jewish people simply because they are Jewish. The solidarity that Jewish Americans, myself included, initially received from our fellow citizens in the aftermath of October 7th has been drowned out by some others, even some we considered allies. As the highest-ranking Jewish elected official in American history, it's an all-too painful reminder that anti-Semitism has long seeped below the surface and now has reared its ugly head in painful, blatant, dangerous ways. Tomorrow, I will be giving a major address on the Senate floor on exactly this, the dangerously dark and terrifying trend of anti-Semitism that is on the rise. I'll speak more about this then. We have more to do to address our needs here and abroad before we leave for the holidays. We're going to continue that work today. Let me call on Senator Murray. Thank you.
Well, it is really good that we avoided a senseless and catastrophic shutdown, but we are very far from mission accomplished. It's time now to roll up our sleeves, talk to one another, and get our work done. First of all, we need to pass a robust supplemental package that actually meets this moment by providing urgently needed funding for Ukraine, Israel, humanitarian support, and our allies in the Indo-Pacific. We cannot do just half of our job and essentially tell the world America only stands with some of its allies some of the time. Secondly, we don't want to be back in the same place again with funding in a few weeks, facing a devastating shutdown and no good options. And make no mistake, CRs are better than a shutdown, but they are not a good option. We have to get serious about our full-year funding bills, and that starts with getting on the same page when it comes to our top lines. The good news here is that that negotiating already happened. House Republicans just need to remember the top lines they passed into law under the Fiscal Responsibility Act, a bill that Speaker Johnson actually voted for, along with many other Republicans. And what's more, here in the Senate, we have 12 bipartisan bills Senator Collins and I wrote that follow the terms of that deal. So I hope our colleagues in the House will spare us drama and dysfunction and further brinksmanship. It's not only unnecessary, but it is deeply dangerous. We may not agree on everything, but we can get something done if we put partisanship and poison pills aside. Compromise never means getting your dream bill. It means listening to the other side, making tough decisions, and writing a bill you can actually pass and get signed into law, and that will make a difference for folks back at home. That is exactly how Vice Chair Collins and I have been able to work with members across the political spectrum to craft our 12 bipartisan spending bills, carefully negotiated and with overwhelming support on both sides of the aisle. Those are bills that can actually become law. I absolutely want Speaker Johnson to join us at the negotiating table so long as he leaves partisanship at the door and is genuinely ready to work in good faith on reasonable bipartisan bills that address the challenges we are seeing around the world and address the needs of families here at home, including childcare, WIC, and much more. Thank you.
Senator Reid.
Thank you, Leader. The NDA is critical to our national security and our military readiness, and I look forward tomorrow with meeting with my House colleagues in person to begin the process of negotiating a final vote, which we can bring to both chambers. And we've already made good progress to that end, working with our staffs and working together with my colleagues in the House and my ranking member, Senator Wicker. We have before us an NDAA that addresses the long-term challenges posed by China and Russia and other adversaries. It's a priority of both parties to get this legislation completed. This is a forward-looking NDAA that invests in the people, the platforms, the infrastructure, and the game-changing technologies that will define the future of warfare. And the bottom line is this: Congress has a constitutional duty to provide for the common defense, and that duty is carried out each year for the last 60 years by passing the NDAA. Thanks in large part to Leader Schumer and my colleagues on the Armed Services Committee, we have an NDA that makes our country safer and stronger and more secure. We're laser focused on policies and platforms that will prepare our troops to win wars, not to engage in political culture wars. But that has been very difficult while the senator from Alabama is blocking military promotions and harming military families. Hundreds of officers up and down the line have had their careers stuck in limbo as Senator Tuberville continues to block their promotions over a political fight that has nothing to do with them. They were selected on merit, on performance, on service, on dedication, not on political issues. Over the last 9 months, he has blocked more than 350 officers, harming our military readiness, leaving critical posts unfilled, and forcing many senior workers to work multiple jobs. And for most senior military workers, one job is 24/7. 2 jobs are very, very demanding. My colleagues on both sides of the aisles have provided him many off-ramps, but he's rejected every one. And just before the Thanksgiving break, the Senate Rules Committee voted to approve a standing order resolution that would allow for a bipartisan majority of senators to override Senator Tuberville's blockade. This is not a rule change. This is a standing order for the remainder of this Congress to provide for an en bloc consideration of military nominations. We're pursuing this route to prevent Senator Tuberville from further harming the United States military at a time of global conflict. This resolution offers every member of the Senate a chance to vote to either support Senator Tuberville's ploy or overcome his reckless blockade. And I have confidence that senators from both parties will support this resolution. In fact, I commend those of my colleagues on the Republican Party who have stepped forward already and indicated that they want to see these men and women promoted and serving their country at a time of great danger. Our troops deserve better, their families deserve better, and the American people deserve better.
Coons.
Thank you, Leader Schumer, Chair Murray, Chairman Reid. This is an absolutely critical month, the few weeks ahead, for our place in the world, for our support for our critical partners and allies, and for whether or not the United States will be the trustworthy, reliable ally and partner we have so long been. The President sent up weeks and weeks ago a robust supplemental to provide critical, urgently needed aid to Ukraine. Winter isn't coming, winter is here. And we know that once again, Putin will intend to try and freeze the citizens, the civilians of Ukraine out by attacking relentlessly the energy infrastructure of Ukraine. In fact, just on one day last week, they launched more drone attacks on Kyiv than had happened in months and months. A critical part of that support is direct budget support to the Ukrainian government, which helps pay for the first responders who respond to every bombing attack, who help pay for the repairs to the electrical system critical to prevent millions of civilians from being hungry and cold in this winter. The supplemental also includes critical aid to Israel, support for our Indo-Pacific partners, which will be strengthened by the passage of the NDAA, as just described by Chairman Reid. But there's one last piece I wanted to mention, humanitarian aid. Right now, there is a global hunger crisis unfolding around the world. We've focused a lot on the need for aid to Ukraine and to Gaza from a humanitarian perspective here. But there are dozens of other countries in our hemisphere, in Southeast Asia, in Africa, in the Middle East, where because of hunger, there is instability. If we don't also pass the global humanitarian portion of the supplemental, we will fail to meet this moment. As the chair of the Intellectual Property Subcommittee of Judiciary, I'm grateful that Leader Schumer is convening the next in the artificial intelligence roundtables with a bipartisan group that will consider how to protect America's creative community, both copyright, patent, and elsewise. And as the chair of the subcommittee that funds our aid to Israel and our humanitarian aid, I look forward to working with my ranking member, Lindsey Graham, to make sure that the full appropriations process moves forward. As Chair Murray referenced, The Senate passed 12 bipartisan bills. The House has passed none. It is long past time for us to take up and pass critical bills, the full supplemental, the NDAA, and the appropriations package for the year ahead. With the leadership of our caucus, I am confident we will get that done. Thank you.
Thank you, Christopher.
Leader Schumer.
Yes, we'll take that young lady over there. You got to talk a little louder.
Border negotiations, it's a difficult issue, it's controversial. What is the plan B if they can't reach an agreement?
Well, we hope to reach an agreement. We do. But we're going to have to pass the 4 bills, very important for America. And as I said, I'm going to put them on the floor next week. Hopefully with bipartisan support, because that's the only way you can get it done.
Are you open to raising the asylum standard?
Look, the bottom line is we need a bipartisan bill, and we're working hard to getting it. Republicans are making it difficult, but we're going to keep at it. Yes, yes.
Should there be a difference between those seeking asylum who enter the country legally versus illegally?
Look, again, the bottom line is we need a bipartisan bill, period. Yes.
Regarding conditioning aid to Israel, is that something that you spoke about in the caucus meeting? Is that something that the majority of Democrats seem to be willing to
Well, it's been spoken out in our caucus meeting on many occasions, and today there was a meeting with Jake Sullivan on the issue. There are different views on that, and we're going to have a discussion with the caucus and the administration. But above all, we got to pass the 4 bills. That's the #1 North Star. Israel, Ukraine, Indochina, and humanitarian aid. Yes. We want to pass, just like the Biden administration, our caucus feels strongly the 4 bills should be together. We hope to have a vote next week. Yes, that's the plan. Yes.
Leader Schumer, so are you open to imposing conditions on aid to Israel? Are you personally open to that?
The bottom line is I'm going to discuss it with the administration and my caucus. But again, North Star, pass the 4 bills. Yes.
Are you open to supporting legislation to address anti-Semitism on college campuses? And have you been involved in any talks about such legislation?
Look, we'd have to look at what legislation is proposed, but listen to my speech tomorrow. Last one.
So when you talk about this violence and this anti-Semitism you see in these schools in New York here, and we look at how this is fracturing some parts of the Democratic caucus. There are some progressives, some liberals who are calling the president Genocide Joe. As you say, as the highest-ranking Jewish official ever, what does that mean for keeping the party together?
Okay, the bottom line is listen to my speech tomorrow. I don't think there's any division in our caucus about fighting anti-Semitism.
Do you want to revisit Obamacare?